Welcome to our Poet Softball Campus Tour. This is in conjunction with some of our campus camps and clinics that we're hosting. As you can obviously tell, our softball field is a little far away from the general campus, so we're adding this in as a best info session as we can possibly do, and along with our COVID timelines that we're dealing with as well, and some restrictions there. So we're starting our campus tour down off the campus center, which is the entrance to campus, off of Painter and Earlham. The campus center is a big main hub for us. It's where our mailboxes are, it's where Campus Inn is, it's where our Dean of Students office is, it's where the bookstore is, it's a lot of that fun stuff. A few of the main questions that we get are, do students have to live on campus? Do they typically live on campus, and how that works? At any given time, I think we've got about a quarter to a half of our team that tends to live on campus. A lot of that has to do with location. If we have any of our athletes that live outside of a 30-mile radius, they are technically required to live on campus through their junior year. They can apply for off-campus housing, and that could be a number of different reasons that they could try to apply to live off campus. It's fairly flexible in any given year. Other than that, most of our students in their first year, try to get the on-campus experience and live in the dorms on campus, but it's not a requirement for those of us that live close to campus. As of right now, we've got a good split between Northern California student athletes on our team specifically, and Southern California student athletes. I mean, everybody usually is trying to stay local and stay close in California, so it's very competitive, obviously, for us being a Division III institution in Southern California. There's just not a lot of opportunities for a lot of our really talented California athletes, so it's really competitive in general across the board. So what we're looking at right now is the top of the campus center. On the right-hand side, you'll see our Campus Inn. That's is the opposite corner. That's called the Spot. Our Campus Inn works with our meal plan, and any of our students that live on or off campus can elect to have a meal plan. It goes anywhere between 10, 12, 15 meals a week. Otherwise, they do have swipes that work at what we call the Spot, which is open in a little bit more flexible hours as well. One of the other questions we often get is class times, class conflicts, and how the scheduling works for a Division III athlete in general. But Whittier College, we're a fairly traditional timelines for our courses, so Monday through Friday, 2, sometimes 3 classes a week. We don't have a whole lot of nighttime classes. Those are usually our upper division classes or labs that often work in the afternoons as well. And then, of course, the beauty of going to a small private institution, Division III, where all of our athletes are really coming here, for the opportunity to compete as an athlete, but also put their academics and their entire experience as a student, first, really, and have a wonderful balance between that is really their priority. And so we do have, obviously, our faculty members are really flexible when it comes down to working with our student athletes, understanding that they're here for multiple different facets, and whether that's working with clubs and organizations, whether it's obviously competing as a softball athlete, or being president of one of our leadership academies as well. What we're looking at right now is called CAS. It's actually an attachment to the library. So the top 3 floors is actually going to be our library, and then we also have that bottom entrance where those double doors are. That's called CAS. CAS stands for Center for Advising and Academic Success. This is the building that probably our athletes are going to spend the most time in, that in addition to the athletic training room, of course. But CAS is the place where they're going to go for tutoring, where they're going to go for academic advising. We also have a program called Student Athlete Peer Mentor, and that program is great for our first-time athletes, first-time students that are really trying to get acquainted with campus, trying to get acquainted with professors, with the balance, with the workload, time management, of course, is a big part to academic success as well. The 2 parts that I really love to hone in on regarding the academic success, one of which is tutoring. Tutoring is amazing at a small institution like ours. It's so flexible, and actually, if our tutoring schedule is put up online weekly based on our work study schedules. And if there were to be a conflict, maybe, we're in our non-traditional season and one of our students needs a biochem tutor at 3 p.m. on a Thursday, and that happens to conflict with practice that week. They can always go to one of our CAS advisors and discuss what their other availability is, and CAS will work with not only the tutor but also their advisor for the course and see if there's any other time that we can be flexible to help with. The other part that our families love to hear, especially our parents, is that we actually have a system where they use their student ID card and they swipe every time that they go into CAS. And CAS will record what they're in there for. If that's printing, if it's study hall, if it's tutoring, mentoring, they're going to record any of that. And every week I get a report from our advisors at CAS that says everything that our student athletes do in there. Now, that's a little less for the purposes of scaring them and a little bit more for just advisement, right? I mean, if a student comes in and we do halfway through the semester, we're talking about their grades and what progress that they're making in a course. Well, we can discuss what resources they are utilizing and maybe what resources they haven't tried yet. And we do incorporate a required study hall program for our first year students. And really the point of that is just to get them acclimated. Make sure that we get acquainted with all of our resources on campus before we might fall behind. Now, the building we're looking at on our right-hand side is the Science Learning Center, and we call it the SLC. That's one of our newer buildings on campus, and obviously we've got a lot of our student athletes that are putting a lot of time in at that building. We do have a lot of science majors, whether that's bio, kinesiology, chemistry. We also have psychology majors as well. So it's a beautiful building that, again, a lot of our student athletes spend a lot of time in. I would say, we always have different trends regarding our majors, and sometimes we have a larger influx of education majors and they want to be teachers. Sometimes we get a larger influx of business majors, maybe marketing. We actually have had quite a few art in the past as well. So it's really a wide range, and it does tend to fluctuate with different classes as we go through the process. But I would say we have a tendency to recruit, not purposefully necessarily, but just from a division stance, more science majors. And I think really the tendency of that is because they know how flexible Division III is. Really, the mantra of Division III is the balance, work-life, academic balance, and to really enable our student athletes the time to dedicate themselves to things that are going to be a little bit heavier in what their time is going to command of them. We've got a lot of labs that are oftentimes in the early afternoons, and our softball schedule from an institution like Whittier, as well as Division III model, really help acclimate our student athletes to that balance as well. Also, again, when it comes down to internships and when it comes down to science projects, a lot of our students are involved in research as well with their professors here. And even also a lot of our student athletes have been involved in study abroad programs as well, which we've got a full fall term. They can do January term, and they can do summer terms a lot as well. So I'm a huge advocate for study abroad. I actually had the opportunity to study abroad myself when I was in college as a Division III athlete myself. So I'm going to guarantee that I'm going to support it, obviously, if I had the opportunity to do it myself. So it's an amazing opportunity. We really advocate for all of our students in general at Whittier to be able to take on that opportunity to go study abroad for however it is that long that they would choose. We've got a lot of scholarships and a lot of scholarship opportunities that we dedicate to enabling and helping really advocate for our students to be able to take that opportunity and go abroad when they can. The other constant question that we get a lot is time schedules, practice schedules, how it looks, what a day in the life of an athlete would look like here at Whittier. So with the Division III rules and model, we are only allowed to work with our teams for 19 weeks out of the entire academic year. So that usually equates to about 2, sometimes 3 weeks for the non-traditional season in the fall. So I do usually elect to take 3 weeks in the fall. So it's not a lot of time, right? We don't get a lot of opportunities to work as a team, but we do strength conditioning in 3 days a week, usually in the mornings in the fall. So the team does get the opportunity to get together, bond through weights conditioning. They have access to the field, they have access to the equipment to be able to work out on their own as well, which is always an awesome opportunity. So obviously the fall is oftentimes dedicated to, heavier courses, heavier loads, internships. I would say probably about 70 to 80% of our athletes on my team specifically do hold down a job. So they work, whether that's not only just over summers, but they work during the non-traditional season as well. Otherwise, once we get into our traditional season in the spring, usually January, we're practicing 5-6 days a week. Once we get into February and we hit our regular course schedules, we'll tend to pull it back a little bit. I have tendency to usually give, at least once we get a little bit deeper into the season, we usually always have Mondays off. Mondays are dedicated to, study days if they need to do group projects, get some extra, work done, extra time done as well. So Mondays are traditionally off, and then which usually turns into voluntary days, and they can always go up to the field, schedule with us. Of course, as coaches, we're always available to get some extra work in on a Monday if they want, but otherwise it's voluntary. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays are usually going to be team practice days. And or a game day, usually on a Friday. So it's going to fluctuate a little bit as we go through season. And then Wednesdays, we try to dedicate as much as possible to our individual hitting days or pitching days as well. So they're individuals that we work around their class schedules as well. I try to incorporate individual days as much as possible, and usually those individual days I work around their class schedules. Makes for very long days on the coaching staff, but less so on our student athletes. And again, enabling them to pop up to the field for an hour and a half when it works within their schedule. Again, is a huge benefit that we have to the Division III model. Coming up through this backside of campus on the right-hand side, you are going to see Ball Hall. We usually take our campus tours through this portion of the campus housing side of it, because these are our underclassmen dorms, our first-year dorms traditionally. So on the right-hand side, it's going to be Ball Hall. A little bit later on the left-hand side, we're going to see Stauffer. How our housing works is our student athletes have the opportunity to choose whatever roommates they might want to choose. I don't necessarily advocate for one or the other. If they want to live with another softball player, great. If they don't, fine by me as well. So it's totally up to them, and kind of how they develop their relationships getting into it. So not only is this usually our first year's dorms are going to be down here for two reasons: A, closest to the library, and also closest to campus safety. So you're going to see going up on the right hand side, we'll go into that a little bit, but it's campus safety is going to be tucked back in there behind Ball Hall. Straight through the end of the parking lot, that's our campus safety. Also down there, our counseling services and health center are down at that end as well. Health center, the students, all of our students have access to the health center Monday through Friday for any specific needs that they might have going through that process, staying here on campus, or if they're a commuter as well, they all have equal access to that. When it comes down to our counseling center, it's been a huge benefit of our counseling center has just grown so much, which is just such a blessing for us on campus. We have a great relationship with counseling center and counseling services. They're doing such great programs, and obviously the move to support mental health and mental health awareness and advocacy is a big movement, nationally within the NCAA, but we really support it here on the Whittier College campus. The availability of our counseling services is just paramount, to enable the fact that our student athletes can have access at any point that they need to. We hit it on a lot of different options. They can do, we've got free apps. We have like the Calm app, for example. We've got another app when student athletes and just students in general can talk to each other and get connected just via app as well. Then we've also got great relationship with the counseling services as well in terms of sports psych. We've actually had a fellow that's always been involved with sports psychology that comes up, and he works with our teams for free. So it's something that we just automatically input, not only just for softball, but for all of our student athletes on campus, is really advocate for them to delve into not only just their personal mental health concerns, but also, the sports psych aspect of it as well, to make sure we're growing and supporting them in that aspect. Entering back into the center of campus up here, we see the SLC on the left-hand side. We see a couple classrooms on the left-hand side, and entering back in on the right is our library. And again, the access to our library is on the back side. And then the entrance to CAS, IT services, and also disability services actually is on the very bottom floor that we talked a little bit about earlier. Disability services is one that I think that we don't talk about enough just as a campus community. But disability services, it could be something as simple as a broken finger, and a student gets supported there to get an extension on a paper for 2 or 3 days because they can't type as fast. Or it could include a physical injury that's a little heavier, like a concussion, right? Or potentially if there's an ACL surgery, or if we require some sort of a surgery that's due to athletic competition, right? So disability services will immediately contact faculty members and intervene to ensure the fact that our students are not falling behind and getting things taken care of ahead of time. I actually sit on our concussion committee within my administrative role on campus as well, so we're always really tightly involved there. We've got another really awesome program here on campus that I'm actually involved in as an advisor as well, but we call it the Poet Student Athlete Leadership Academy. For anybody who's involved in it or understands, the NCAA has an organization called SAC, stands for Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and a lot of that involvement is our, building leaders, developing leaders as well, but also having those conversations at the NCAA level in terms of voting and student athlete advocacy. So we're involved with a program. We term it more as a leadership academy and leadership development side. So, from a softball recruiting perspective, recruiting student athletes that want to be involved in our campus community, and whether that's clubs and organizations, whether it's PSALA, whether it's being a leader in their academic field, GPAs and academics and leadership development has always been a huge portion of our team development and what's really important for us as a unit. Academically, we've always prided ourselves as a team for our team GPA. In the 4 years that I've been the head coach here, we've gone from a team GPA of 3.15, and it's increased every single year to get us up. I believe this last year was about a 3.4 GPA for an entire team, with our rosters being anywhere between 19 to 23 on a roster. It's a huge accomplishment to have an academic profile that is that high. We've also ranked every year that for the years that we've been able to compete, but we've ranked every year with the NFCA as an NFCA all-academic team. There's only been, in the few years that I've been here, there's only been two other SCIAC schools that have ranked with the NFCA on the team academic GPA, which is a huge accomplishment for us. We will be finishing up with a tour of all of our athletics facilities, moving into a separate audio presentation here, but that concludes our lower campus tour of Whittier College.